in a more applied environment. Obviously in the previous session we looked at kind of learning, definitions and key theories around learning. So again, to reinforce this, learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, experience or being taught. Getting players to understand the technical, tactical, social and psychological demands of their sport involves learning. Another definition might be that football players learn to play the game through understanding their roles and responsibilities on the pitch. And giving your young people insight and knowledge into your own experiences and what you've gone through and your work experiences or your playing experiences to help inform and give them knowledge and understanding. So in the previous session we looked at stages of learning. We're actually going to look at another area, again looking at 4 stages of learning in a little bit more of applied context based on competency level. So again, the last one looked at the kind of continuum. This is going to look at competence and again similar sort of processes and information with just a different way of looking at it. So focus on this model, there are 4 stages of learning, from ignorance to mastery. So breaking these down, at the bottom here you've got the unconscious incompetent. So you don't know that you don't know. So you're not aware or understand that you don't know about these whatever it is you're learning or doing. Then you've got the conscious incompetent. So you know that you don't know. So you're aware that you don't know what you're doing. The conscious competent. So this is where mistakes and confusion can often occur. You know about it, but you don't actually have to think about it. And then the unconscious competent is at mastery stage. You know it so well that you don't have to think about it and you can do it. So in alignment from this diagram and this model, or stages of learning, the ignorance and that kind of bottom element is very much around, the cognitive development through to that mastery of that autonomous stage that we've previously looked at. Okay, so I've given you a little insight into initial thoughts behind this. I'm actually now going to delve a little bit deeper into what each stage means as a player, and then obviously as you as a coach dealing with in this scenario. So an unconscious incompetent, so young players will attend football practice not knowing what they are doing. So in this scenario, the coach should introduce the ball and the basics. Players should not be overloaded with information, and they learn how to do things, and that's this very initial process and start point. The conscious incompetent, players are recognising what they are good at. So basically, players should be able to do the basics. Coaches need to break skills down, have a go at the basics, technical information, use verbal cues and advice on how to perform the skills correctly. The third stage, the conscious competent. So at this stage, the players can do the basics and play games where the participants the key kind of principles of play will come into effect. The performance is determined by the decisions they make on the pitch. So at this stage, the coach should tell and show, question, instruct, and let the players have a go. The final stage is the unconscious competent. So the player will autonomously perform. They become competent performers. They will solve problems and make the right decisions without even thinking. So at this stage, as a coach, we should then start to challenge and support our athletes at this stage. So obviously, there's key things to think about when we're working with children and youth, where they fit in this continuum, and the things that we're looking for in them, and the things that we need to do as deliverers. So you might be asking yourself the question now, based on those kind of key stages, how do we know that learning is taking place? It might be through the demonstration of skills and techniques, understanding of the games and practices, or coaches could even use question and answer to check learning has taken place. But I'd like to pose this question to you. Does this checking for learning actually really check for learning, or are the players just able to give you a textbook answer? So does the Q&A sessions you do really check for understanding and learning, or is it just, depends on the type of questioning you use and the nature of that questioning, how much level of learning you can identify as taking place. So it's being aware of your questioning skills and using different approaches to question and Q&A to actually really ensure that learning has taken place. So moving on, we're now going to look at another model, which is Bloom's taxonomy. It gives you an indication of where someone might be within the learning process. Okay, so the first area you've got creating, generating new ideas, products or ways of viewing things, designing, constructing, planning and producing. You've then got evaluating. justifying a decision or a course of action, checking, hypothesising, critiquing, experimenting or judging. Analysing. So this is breaking down information into parts to explore understanding and their relationships, comparing, organising, deconstructing, interrogating and finding. We've got applying, using information in another familiar situation, implementing, carrying out and using and executing. Understanding. It's explaining ideas or concepts, so interpreting, summarising, paraphrasing, classifying and explaining. And then finally, it's remembering, it's recalling the information, recognising, listing, describing, retrieving, naming and finding. So the last three we looked at, basically the processes of remembering, understanding and applying are the technical side of playing football or the game. Young players understand how the technique is done, coaches test where the player should be and how it's progressed in a particular technique. Whereas the ones I started with are obviously the more complex areas of this taxonomy. So these involve analysing, evaluating and creating. So this is where you're creating higher order thinking. These are relating things to game situations, letting athletes think for themselves and solve problems. They need to analyse and create situations. So coaches often have a tendency to give the answer and tell athletes what to do and what they are doing wrong and how to fix it. How does that impact their learning? What can we do in this analysing, evaluating, creating area of learning to actually improve that learning process and challenge our athletes? So throughout this session, looking at all these different kind of models and theories of learning, I've obviously indicated around what we should be doing in terms of coaching and delivery and in terms of the environment we create to really improve and develop learning. So it's important that we use a variety of methods to help ensure learning takes place, but also have the right balance and consistency of practice. We need to allow trial and error. We need to allow learning from mistakes. It's really important to ensure we have positive reinforcement, praise, congratulation, telling athletes what they did well, how they did it and why it benefits their performance, but also questioning and actually getting them to identify some of these things. It's far more educational rewarding when things are done well and it's in a positive situation. We need to develop sessions and practice that develop these key decision-making skills. So what are we trying to get from sport in terms of developing learning? Personal learning through sport, we could look to ensure that our young people are developing these key things as they learn. It might be around developing self-motivation, being respectful, make sure they're hardworking, creativity, enthusiasm, trustworthiness, being aware of the self and others, being open-minded, developing curiosity, discipline, manners, reflective processing and thought processing, honesty, resilience and reliability. There's a whole plethora of key skills that we can be obtained through sport, and we need to be looking at us as deliverers and as working in sport what we can help young people develop through our sport. And finally, it's really important for us as coaches to ensure that our players, children understand what they are learning and why they're learning it, and to make sure they're always involved in that process.